Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power of Passive Investing meetup. We have an incredible guest tonight. Not only John is an amazing individual, he's an experienced marketer, a real estate investor, syndicator, and he's going to talk about other accolades as well. But he is also a close friend of mine, and I'm really thrilled to have him here. He's going to bring a ton of value to the group. Feel free to ask him questions. And I'm sure it's going to be an amazing presentation. We had almost 50 people sign up, so I'm sure if people are not showing up, they're either late or going to ask for the recording later. And I will, of course, provide the recording afterwards with everyone who registered for this presentation. The usual disclaimer, this is strictly for informational purposes, so we're not selling anything here. The housekeeping, just keep yourself on mute during the presentation. Feel free to post questions or unmute yourself at the end and ask your questions later. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions and a lot of follow-ups to John's presentation. Our next event is on February 18th. We have Adipia Derika coming over. She's going to be talking about power of harnessing the power of intuition. She recently wrote a book about this, and she's going to expand on the topic. We have a bunch of other amazing guests coming up. Afterwards, we have a real estate broker coming, and then a real estate CPA coming on board. And then as a continuation of educating folks about alternatives, we'll have a minerals investor come up, someone who's been in the minerals business for over 2 decades, I think. So he's going to talk about that concept to us as well. If you need to reach out to me, this is my contact information. I think I'm missing Clubhouse on here, but if anyone needs to find me on Clubhouse, it's just my name, Alina Trigup. Relatively easy to find. That's all I have for tonight, and I am giving the stage to John. John, I'm excited to have you on.
Alina, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and Alina's a good friend of mine. For everyone else, we get to talk often, and I'm excited to actually be a part of this event. And I got to say, can you put that last slide back up real quick?
Sure.
Is it going to be a lot of work to put it back up?
No, it's okay. That's fine.
All right.
Well, what's missing?
Nothing. I mean, geez, how many different ways of contacting you do you need? I mean, you got 1, 2, 3,
Well,
4,
like
5.
I said, I'm still missing Clubhouse.
7 ways. You're still missing Clubhouse. All right, man. All right, 7 ways to get in touch with you. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, listen, I'm excited to talk. Do you want me to present? I know we were going back and forth a little bit earlier. Do you want me just to throw it up? Okay, cool.
The floor is yours. Go for it.
All right. So what I'm going to do, guys, Alina was really clear to me that she didn't want a boring ass presentation. She kept peppering me throughout the day, double checking and make sure it was interactive. It wasn't boring. So I told her not to worry. This is going to be an interactive conversation. So can you guys just keep me honest? I want to make sure that this is engaging. I don't want to bore you. I want to make sure that this is actually worth your time. It's a Thursday night. It's the sun's down here already. So I know you all are spending this evening. I want to make sure it's valuable for you. So what we're going to do is walk through a presentation at a high level, and I want to make this interactive. So I'm going to pause around 2 or 3 different times just to start engaging in conversation and dialogue, okay? If that works for you, we're going to jump into everything. So if you guys are ready to get started, just put a 1 in the chat box so I know you're ready to jump into it, okay? All right, Taylor with the 1. There we go. All right, cool. Raphael, how you doing, man? See you in there. All right, cool. All right, good. Let me pull the presentation up. Do I have access to share my screen? I do.
Yes, you do.
Cool. All right, can everybody see my presentation here?
We can.
Excellent. All right, so let's jump into this. The title for this was I don't know, something about attracting capital without being a salesperson. So what we're really going to get into is understanding how to raise money without being heavy-handed with the ask. And before we jump into some of those specifics, I want to know, what concerns do you have about raising capital for deals? So can you guys just list out some of the concerns in the chat box? Like, what's the number one issue you have? If you've never raised capital for deals, what's stopping you? What is the hurdle you feel like you need to overcome? And if you have raised money for deals, what's the thing that's stopping you from doing more, raising more money, doing more deals? Put it in the chat box so we can make sure we address these things. I gotta move my chat box so I can see it. All right, so, all right, commits versus actuals. Okay, we'll talk about that. Who to ask? Obviously, a big question, right? Who do we actually talk to? We're definitely going to talk about that. Where to find the decision makers, how to ask, how to close. Okay, good questions. Good. What else? I know you guys didn't just come here to listen. So what, you have to have some questions or something you want to get out of this presentation. If you don't tell me, I won't know. All right, fear of rejection. That's a big one. That's a really big one. Thank you for typing that one. Okay, we'll definitely talk about that. Credibility when you're a newbie. Excellent. All right, what other fears or concerns do you have about raising capital? Let's see if we get one or two more.
John, as it's commonly known, people say build the well before you need the water.
Yeah. Yep. Nurture relationships from Mod. Okay, good. Okay, let's jump into it. I think this gives me a good framework, and I think we're going to address most of these during our presentation. As we go and as we pause, if we don't get into it, let's make sure you ask those questions. If I don't answer your question, this is not the situation where I shake something here and tell you got to buy something and get it. We're going to share it. Okay. So make sure you ask those questions, and I'll try to do whatever we can in the hour of the time we have together. All right. So we got into our questions and concerns. I want to give you a little bit about my story. Okay. So I come from corporate America. I was at, a marketing executive. I was working at General Motors when we went through bankruptcy. I've done campaigns for big companies like Buick and Mountain Dew and Nike. And when I was doing all those things, part of what happened was I was at GM when we went through bankruptcy, right? And going through bankruptcy, I realized that I couldn't depend on my W-2 corporate job. At any moment, I felt like it could get taken away from me. And even if I was a great employee and stellar and all that stuff, I could get moved around just from not being someone's guy. There's politics in it. So I saw people get shipped laterally to, the other side of the country. I saw somebody get shipped to Shanghai. So I sat back and watched that and said, man, I can't imagine having, kids in high school and having to move them up to the other side of the world. So I really started to learn more about real estate and started setting up the plan to invest. I started with a 2-unit building, 3-unit building, 8-unit building, and I built this 13-unit portfolio, right? So not huge, worth $1.5 million, had a nice little portfolio, lots of equity, but not so much cash flow. And I realized that while I was working this plan and it was working, it was going to be a slow plan, right? It was going to be a very slow track to get to the point where I was making enough from real estate to be able to quit my job, or at least to insulate myself from anything I will lose. Excuse me. So what happened to me was I met someone who was really scaling their portfolio. And I sat down, I had lunch with her, and she told me that she was working with other people. I had never thought about that. I was not someone who was trying to raise money or work with other people. In my mind, you went, you bought properties with the money you had, you saved up money, you could buy more properties. You didn't save money or you didn't have it, you couldn't buy. So I never thought about raising money from other people. So once I started to think about it, all those doubts came up, right? All the questions you guys just went through. Well, who would I even talk to get money? Why would they invest with me? I haven't been doing this that long. What do I say to them? How do I structure the deal? I ran through all of these scenarios, and I ended up hiring a mentor to kind of help me understand some of the processes. And throughout that experience, what happened to me was my vision of basically, I just wanted to buy another like 8-unit or a 16-unit. And what I realized is that there was a whole world of opportunity to go out and buy some of these larger apartment buildings if I was willing to be a partner. So we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end as well. But right now we have a portfolio of over 900 units that we're general partners in, valued at somewhere around the $90 million mark. And, you guys have, Alina and I've talked, but, I host a lot of events and content to try to engage and educate people. So I host the Target Market Insights Multifamily and Marketing podcast. If you're not subscribed to it, I highly recommend it. This is probably the only thing I'm going to push today. It's free. We share great insights on multifamily and marketing. It's anywhere you listen to podcasts. I also host a monthly meetup as well with the Chicago Multifamily Club and an annual conference called the Midwest Real Estate Networking Summit. So these are some of the things that I do to kind of help connect with other people and to build relationships with people. And what I've learned from all of those experiences, there are a lot of people who are like me early on. But the resources that I had available to help me grow and kind of get to the next level aren't the same resources today. There's a lot more information. You saw Lena's bio, right? She has 7 different ways to contact her, 7 different platforms, right? You go on any one of those platforms, you're going to have somebody telling you how to invest in multifamily, how to raise capital. And it's just a lot of noise at one point, right? You just hear from everybody. You don't know who to listen to. You don't have a blueprint. You don't have a plan. So in looking at that, we kind of stepped back in the conversations we were having with people and said, look, why don't we document our entire process, focusing more on the marketing aspect of what we do so we can share that with people. So that's my story at a high level. I want to focus more on kind of when I was making that transition from my personal portfolio into starting to work with other investors. So we're going to focus the rest of the conversation on that. Okay. So how do you attract capital for real estate? And notice I said attract capital and not raise capital. You guys probably hear people say raise capital all the time, right? Capital raising, raise capital. I say attract capital. This is very deliberate. This is very intentional. Does anybody know why I say attract capital?
Guys, feel free to unmute yourself or post in the chat if you prefer.
Look at you, Taylor. Did you see my presentation? Good, good. Excellent. That's right. So you want them to come to you. I love it. That's exactly it. Inbound versus outbound. The reason I asked Taylor if you saw my presentation is, look at that slide. Spot on. So that's right. We're talking about inbound versus outbound marketing. What are we talking about here? Inbound marketing, that's when leads come to you, right? That's people saying, hey, you've got something I'm interested in, right? That's when, for instance, if let's say if I'm Nike, right, and I'm selling running shoes. Well, there's a big difference if I'm picking up the phone, calling customers, saying, "Hey, would you like to buy some new running shoes?" It's like, no, leave me alone, right? Versus when someone walks into the store looking for running shoes, right? It's a lot easier to make that sell and make that conversion. So the goal is to try to get people to come in or for someone to search, right? If they're online and they're searching for running shoes, that's more inbound marketing. Now I can kind of serve and build relationships. So it's really about intent. And the challenge with raising capital is you don't know the intent of the other person. And when you don't know the intent and you haven't built that kind of relationship, it can feel like you're being a salesperson, right? Because you don't know if they're interested. You feel like maybe you're that multi-level marketing person, calling people you went to high school with and, hey man, do I got something for you? And you don't want that, right? So attracting is really about how do you position yourself and position what you're doing in a way that allows people to know the benefits you offer and allow them to help, bring people to you. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as well. All right. So there are really 3 C's to attracting capital. The first C is credibility. The second is confidence. And the third is connections. Okay. So let's talk about some of the myths versus reality. All right. The very first myth is that in order to be credible, you need to have some prior experience. You need to have a track record as an investor. The second myth is kind of the complete opposite. Hey man, if you don't have a track record, just fake it till you make it, right? At some point you will fake it and you'll get there. How many people have either heard this or this is something that you believe or something that is holding you back from moving forward as a capital raiser? Put a 2 in the chat box if this is something that you're struggling with. Okay. 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 Thank you. Okay. So listen, I understand why people feel this way. And as I said, I was there. When I had my 13 unit portfolio, I had some experience, but certainly not enough to go out and raise money from other investors. At least I thought. And what I realized is I was looking at it the wrong way. I was looking at it completely the wrong way. I'll give you an example. One of the most successful syndicators I know had zero experience in real estate when he started, right? Because no one does. At some point, you have to start somewhere, right? But you don't have to be a broker for 10 years or a property manager for 10 years before you transition. It really comes down to understanding the skill set. So let's talk about that skill set a little bit. Okay. First of all, the way you build credibility is you start by building an A team around you, right? So if you guys remember the old A team TV show, right? You got to build your team. You got to get great people who have great skills that contribute to your growth and your success. And this is about real credibility. I'm not talking about slapping somebody's name in your deck so you look good on paper. I'm talking about really building a team. Who's your property manager? Who are your partners? Who are your other investors? Who's your coach or mentor or someone who is a senior advisor who's going to be overlooking your shoulder, making sure you're making the right decisions, right? Who is the actual team that you put together to go out and take down this deal? If you're not assembling a team, then you can't be credible because this is too serious for you to do it by yourself. And if you don't understand that, then you need to step back. You have to build the team. All right. So building that team is going to help you have the credibility. Now, on that team, you still have to have a role. It's not enough to go hire, a big time mentor and get a great property management company and just assume they're going to do all the work. You got to be the workhorse, right? So figure out how you add value, figure out what your skill sets are. You want to be professional and be transparent. Why is that important? Let's talk about credibility. If I'm talking to you and I, I don't have a website, I don't have a company name, my email address is, at AOL.com, and I don't have anything to actually formally present to you. How credible am I coming across as someone who you may consider investing with, especially if I'm asking for $100,000 investment, right? But if I've taken the time to build out a professional website, to lay out my business plan, my vision, to give you an example of what a deal looks like, to build, kind of a company from the ground up, to, have an email, to follow up in my communications. Professionalism is doesn't cost a whole lot of money, right? So how you come across is up to you. And credibility, even if you've never done a deal, the way you present yourself, you can control. If you've never done a deal, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't know the industry terms or the industry jargon or be able to talk to a broker and understand cap rates and understand those kind of things. So that credibility really is about yourself. And you have to make sure that you are putting the best version of yourself out there, but also being transparent with your experience. You can say, hey, I've never done a deal, but here's a team that I've built. Here's what a potential deal would look like if I were to go out and do it, and here are the people that are going to help me take it down. I would trust that person way more than someone who just called me and said, hey, man, I'm getting into real estate. Would you be interested in investing 100K with me? Right. So credibility is also in how you present yourself. That person who's hungry, that's taking the time to think through these things, that's going to go a lot further than someone who's nilly-willing it, right? Even if you've got 5 years experience, if you're still coming across as someone who's not professional, I'm going to have a lot of hesitation as a passive investor. Okay. So you also want to highlight your successes. While you may not have experience in multifamily, you do have other successes, highlight them. And if you don't have these successes, you probably should step back and ask yourself, is this really what you want to do? But, what wins have you had in your corporate life, in your professional life? Have you built in your own wins, right? What else can you highlight? So for myself, one of the biggest shifts I made was I went from, well, I've never bought a larger multifamily building. So, I'm not comfortable doing that. And I had to step back and say, you know what? I've been recognized by a major publication as one of the top advertising and marketing professionals in the country. I've helped turn around a major brand like Buick to be one of the fastest growing brands in America. I've worked on major campaigns. I've oversaw $100 million advertising campaign. I oversaw 7 agency partners. I've been able to grow all the business accounts that I've led in my corporate life. And I did build a $1.5 million personal portfolio by myself. So you have to almost look at it like a resume and focus on the things that you do well, the wins you have had, because it's very easy to focus on the limitations that you see, right? It's like working out and looking in the mirror. It's like you see the bald spots or the little extra fat on the side, but there's a lot of positive things. You got to focus on those things too, right? You can't come into this with a negative mentality or negative mindset. You have to focus on the things that you can do well and the things that you are great at. All right. And then last are two things. One, be knowledgeable, right? If you have all those things and they look pretty, but I start talking to you and it's clear that you have no idea what you're talking about, you're going to lose a lot of credibility instantly, right? And then the last thing is be trustworthy. Be somebody who takes the time to get to know people, to build trust, to understand what they're looking for, and grow from there. I'm going to pause real quick. I know we had some questions early on or some concerns about credibility. Does what I just talked about help you understand how you can do a better job of building your credibility when talking to investors? All right, see a couple head nods. Okay, what questions do you still have about building credibility?
John, maybe talk a little bit more about building thought leadership platform or uh, working
I'm gonna do
around
that. I'm gonna come
social
back to
media.
that. That's cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be Clubhouse, but whatever social media handle you prefer.
Okay. It's a quiet group I see. All right, we'll keep moving. All right, cool. All right, the next piece here is really about, I mentioned trust is the last bullet point, right? And when you think about trust, I come from marketing, so a lot of my examples are going to be in the marketing space. So when you think about trusted brands, they all have similar traits in common. And one of the most common underlying themes is the most trusted brands focus on building connections with customers. Okay. And the way they do that is actually listen to their consumers, understanding what they're looking for, and they try to position themselves to address their wants and needs. So, and Alina, this is kind of alluding to some of the stuff you just said too. If you want to build trust, the best thing you can do is listen. Okay. Listen to the people you want to work with, understand their problems, understand their frustrations, understand their fears, understand their desires, understand their goals. If you understand those things, now you have a sense of, how you can start to connect and engage with them. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well as we go on. But building trust is something that's really important. Let's move on to the next C, confidence. All right. You guys probably listen to me like, oh, this dude seems real confident, right? Sitting here on a webinar on a Thursday, confidence. So, you may be asking yourself, hey, that's cool for him, not for me, right? So first myth here is some people are just good at putting themselves out there. And second myth is you just can't be confident your first time doing something. It just takes a minute to get that experience before you can get confident. How many people believe this is one of the challenges they face? Go ahead and put a 3 in the chat box if this is something that you face. Okay. Okay. See a few threes coming through. Okay. This is the hard part, man. And listen, if you're on here and you express the challenge with raising capital, you should have had a 3 in the chat box because I assure you, confidence it's a big thing. It's a really big piece here. I want to tell a quick story. I had a guy who um, I was talking to last year, and he told me, hey, he's got these investors, he can raise $1 million for a deal, and he was looking to be a general partner. So we spoke for a while. I said, well, listen, I'll tell you what, um, I have a deal that we're getting ready to roll out. But if you can do some other things, maybe you can help me with some of the marketing things I want to do, and maybe you can help me with some of the asset management. And if you're willing to do that, why don't you come on board? And so he said, great. So he said, well, I'm going to raise $1 million. I said, great. You raise your $1 million. And he went out there and guess how much he raised? That much. He was very confident. He was confident through and through, right? But he missed something. And the problem was he didn't have the credibility and the confidence together. See, there's bravado and hubris. That's not what I'm talking about when we talk about confidence. I'm talking about understanding the work you've put in and feeling like you are prepared. Confidence comes from preparation. Okay. Okay. Let's picture Kobe Bryant here. Kobe used to shoot 500 shots a day. It didn't matter how many went in. That was his routine, you know? And the confidence comes from preparation. So how do you build your confidence? First of all, educate yourself. Part of what you all are doing right here, right now. You may not think it, but attending a meetup, listening to a podcast, reading a book, you're making strides. You're making progress. You have to give yourself credit and recognize these things. You are making progress on your journey by being here with us tonight. This is how you help to build your confidence. Okay. You recognize where you're at. There's a gap. How do I fill that gap? Okay, let me attend some meetups, let me read some books, let me listen to some podcasts. Maybe there's a big jump you got to take next, right? Maybe you have to hire a coach, or maybe you have to get a partner, or maybe you need to start analyzing deals. But you have to start taking those steps, okay? You educate yourself. The preparation builds confidence. Recognize where you're weak. If you are phenomenal in front of a camera speaking, but you are terrible behind a keyboard analyzing deals, go find somebody who can help you analyze deals. Even if it's a virtual assistant, you know, if you're great at analyzing deals, but you are petrified of turning on your camera, it's a lot of y'all right now who don't have the camera on, by the way. And I don't know if this is y'all because you don't even like you're not even comfortable having your camera box show up or what. But it's cool, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying, if that's your thing, that's fine. If it's a weak spot, what you have to do is get your weak spots to the point where they are not hindering your performance. So sometimes you're gonna have to turn the camera on, okay? And sometimes you're gonna have to build relationships with people that can help you take it to the next level, okay? The most important thing though is don't focus on the results. You know, too many people focus on what happened. I just told you the story of the guy who told me he could raise $1 million and raise nothing. You want to know what I said to him after that? I said, listen, don't worry about it. What I want you to do is learn from this and figure out what you can get better at. Go back and practice. You know, was it your conversation? Was it, your message? Did you not have the relationships that you thought? Did you not understand what people were looking for? Did you not have the credibility? Did you not share the credibility? But you can learn from this. Now that's on you. If you go out, you play a sport, you miss some shots, you fail, whatever, it's on you how you respond. If you say, "Hey, I'm not playing anymore," then that's cool. I play baseball or softball with a guy who's pretty well known here locally, and I was awful the first time we went out to play. I mean, awful, right? And it's like, oh man, I don't want to embarrass myself. So, part of me was like, dude, don't go back next week, man. Just tell them you got an injury or something happened. And I said, no, listen, this isn't about me going out there to be a superstar softball player. I'm out here to build relationships and to, get some physical activity in and grow. And I made it a point to say, you know what? We need to go to the batting cage. We need to actually work on this skill to get to a confident level. It's the same thing here. If you go out there and you try to raise money for a deal and you fall on your face, okay, it happens. Learn from it. Get out there and practice so you can get better. All right. Does that make sense? I mean, we talked about building confidence. I want to pause again here. What questions do you guys have? Was this helpful in helping you understand how to actually build confidence when talking to investors?
John, I think you bring up an important point that most people don't have confidence at first, but practice make it happen. just like Kobe Bryant kept practicing and practicing, even when he was extremely good. The same thing applies to everyone else. Whatever you want to achieve in life, you can, as long as you practice, as long as you try it many, many times and keep practicing and keep improving yourself. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just look at other people that are successful in a business or in something that you want to do in attracting capital, and look how they attract capital and just follow their lead.
Yep, absolutely. Good stuff there. Good stuff. Okay, let's move on. I'll keep it moving here. All right, last one. This is my favorite one. All right, this is the last C. And by the way, there's actually 6 C's. I like to focus on the first 3, but we'll get to the other 3 in a moment. All right, but connections. Now, y'all asked the question, where do I get the money, right? Where do I find the money? What do I say to them? How do we talk to them, right? So the first myth, and I hear this from everybody, is that you should start with family and friends. All right, if you've heard that, go ahead and give me the 3 in the chat box, okay? Give me the 3 in the chat box if you heard start with friends and family, or that you won't attract new investors until you have experience, right? It's like, hey, you start with friends and family, but you can't get new investors until you have some experience, right? Put a 3 if those are things you've heard or challenges you face when it comes to raising money for deals. Okay, I see a few 3s. I see a few, not that many, but a few. Okay, okay. Hopefully, the rest of y'all still with me, or maybe y'all are good. So let me know. All right. So here we go. So here's the thing on the connections, right? You should absolutely start with your friends and family, but it's not what you think. You don't go to your friends and family and say, "Hey, I got this deal." Hey, I got to pause this whole presentation, man. Don says the deal's sweet enough, the money will come. That is the biggest BS I've ever heard. And I'm not calling you out, Don. What I'm saying is a lot of people say that or believe that, and it will get you in so much trouble because you just think, oh, I just need a good deal. And here's why. It's not about the deal most of the time. It starts with those other 2 things I just talked about. If I don't trust you, does it, like, I don't care what the deal is. I don't believe in you. You can put whatever numbers you want into a spreadsheet. Doesn't make it real. So that credibility, I think, is so important to start with. So if you don't have that initial credibility, then the numbers in the deal, that's not there, right? And what happens is for investors, depending on how you structure it in your own self and the confidence in the way you present, if you're presenting a deal and you know you need to raise $1 million, and that comes through in kind of the way you talk, they're going to sense that sense of desperation. And now they're going to start to double question things. So you can put whatever, you can have a 50% IRR deal. And people will be like, what's the catch? What am I missing? Because so do not run out here believing that if you got a good deal, the money's going to show up. It's easier to raise money if you are prepared. Okay. But go back to the gym. It's easy to make a layup. A lot harder when you got 20,000 people and somebody trying to block you. So the preparation is so key, and so many people don't understand those things. It really takes a lot of effort. So I just want people to know that, yes, if you have a great deal, it will be easier to raise money for sure, but you've got to still solve the first 2 questions. Who are you as an individual? People want to know, do I know you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? Then I'm going to look at the deal once I figured out those things. And if that's not it, you're going to have a hard time raising. And that's why I go back to the credibility about building an A team, because I don't know, if you've never done a deal, I can look past that if you show me, hey, here's a property management company that oversees 5,000 units in its market. Here's someone else who has 2,000 units in their portfolio. They all looked at this deal. They think it's a great deal too. Now I feel a little more comfortable versus you just calling me, telling me you got something you want me to invest in. So I just want people to understand that it's not about the deal. It's not. It's not about the deal. Okay. It's more about you and being prepared, because they're expecting you to go through that process of vetting the deals and figuring out what deals are the right deals and all of that. Again, the numbers in the spreadsheet, Listen, I don't know how many people actually look at pro formas and look at actual performance, but I mean, it's virtually impossible to actually be 100% accurate. Either you overperform and you actually exceeded it, or you underperformed and you're beneath it, right? So the numbers are numbers. It really comes down to who do you trust and who do you want to partner with. So let me go back to the connections because this is a good, segue back into it, right? Um, the reason I say start with your family and friends, but not necessarily as your target, is you want to think about this like any other business. Let's say I was opening up a bakery. Okay. So I got my brand new bakery. Um, and I'm excited. And I need to sell some sheet cakes, to drive my business. And I love sheet cakes, and my mom likes sheet cakes. So I go to my mom and say, "Hey, mom, I just opened up this new bakery, and I want you to buy 5 sheet cakes." My mom is probably gonna say, "I love you, son, but I'm not buying. I don't need 5 sheet cakes." And that's what a lot of people do when they're raising capital. They call their friends, the family. "Hey, man, I'm investing in real estate. You interested in putting up $50,000 investing with me?" I have zero interest in real estate. What are you talking about? So they're not your target. One or two of them maybe, right? And maybe you can convince them to consider real estate. But what I would say is an easier way, going back to attracting capital versus being that salesperson. If you want to attract capital, you got to start with understanding who your target is. Who do you help? I'll go back to my bakery example. I got this bakery, and I'll go to my mom and say, "Mom, I'm launching this bakery, and I really want to grow my business. And the people we serve and the people who love our products the best are folks who are celebrating big events, right? So anyone celebrating a wedding, anybody celebrating a birthday, celebrating an anniversary. If you know anybody who has a big event like that, a big gathering coming up, I would love an introduction. I would love to do a sampling for them to learn more about our business and be considered to cater, their event." Now I've given my mom enough information to think about, "Oh, you know what? Your cousin Susie, she's getting married next summer. You should make sure you call her and tell her what you've got." Okay, bet. Think about this from the same thing from a real estate standpoint. Hey, who do you serve? Who do you help? And most of you don't know this. You don't really know who's a good investor for you. People always say doctors and engineers. They just go to who are accredited investors, who makes money, and that's what they want. But they don't stop to think what makes you uniquely positioned to help those people. Do they know you, like you, and trust you? And if you were a doctor, that makes sense for you to go to other doctors and say, "Hey, I'm going to target doctors because I'm a doctor, you're a doctor. We already have a built-in connection." That's great. But for most people, if you don't have that clarity, then you're just shooting around. You're throwing spaghetti at the wall and you're calling everybody you've ever met and you're hoping you can find somebody who wants to invest. Certainly that's one way to do it, but to attract, you have to understand what you're doing. Let's go back to your Nike example, right? I mentioned Nike running shoes. That's pretty specific. Nike running shoes. So I know I'm talking to runners, right? I know I'm talking to people who like fashion, so it's not necessarily people looking for the cheapest shoe and may want a little bit of style with it, right? So they have what we call an avatar or somebody who they know wants the kind of products they have to offer. You should have an avatar as well. Know your business. Who do you serve? If you have clarity, now you're gonna have a way to grow. In any business, this isn't about raising money. This is about business. If you are in business, you need to know who you serve. Who's your customer that your business is serving? If you're not clear on that, then you're going to have a hard time growing because you don't know the problems they face. You remember the questions we had before? We talked about the trust, right? Let me go back to this. Oh, past it. All right, right here, right? So we talked about the most trusted brands in the world. What they do is they listen to their consumers so that they can understand and address their wants and needs. If you don't know who your consumers are, how can you listen to them and address their wants and needs? You have to know who they are. You have to talk to them. You have to listen. And then you're in a position now to say, okay, here's who we serve, here's who we help. So I want to pause there and see Alina, because she's been riding me a little bit, make sure I did a good job today. So, um, any questions there?
John, fantastic presentation. This was great. I think it got a lot of value to folks.
Okay, awesome. So I
Guys,
have
does
two
anyone?
more.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
if there are no questions, I can wrap up. We just open up the Q&A if that works. Okay.
Sure, go for it.
All right. So the three C's, just to recap, it's credibility. So to build credibility, you want to highlight your previous wins. Okay. Whether it's your wins, the team around you, you build credibility by highlighting the previous wins. Confidence comes from preparation and practice. Okay. Know your stuff, be prepared, and practice. Figure out what you need to say. Something doesn't work out well. All right, don't say that word, but you got to practice, And then last is connections. It's really about people and problems. Understand people, figure out their problems, and if you can have a product or a solution for their problems, now you're going to be able to move forward. I had an investor call earlier today, just for context, with a high net worth individual, and his challenge is most of the people he talks to, they know what he does, and they are very eager to try to get him to be an investor, and he doesn't trust them. So that's his problem. So what we have to do is take the time to build trust, to get to know him, and to allow that fear or concern for him to come down. And that's getting to know people. So you have to build connections and allow those relationships to develop. So you mentioned, Alina, you want to talk a little bit about social media. There are three other C's here, and this is really like bonus content. I normally don't like getting into this, but they are channel, communication, and consistency. Channel is the where. That could be anything as rudimentary as text messaging or phone calls or emails, or it could be being a clubhouse host or a meetup host or anything else where you kind of create a thought leadership platform. Communication is your message. It's what you're saying. Okay. So, what are you actually going to convey to people? And then last is consistency. If you did this 3 months in a row and then disappeared, you'd have a hard time continually attracting capital if people didn't know you were doing this on a consistent basis. So that consistency showing up, it builds credibility. It also allows people to feel comfortable and safe knowing that they know where you're at and you're going to continue to show up, be public, and be present. So yeah, just one last little story on this. I mentioned earlier about one of the most successful syndicators I know. Well, when he started, he had no real estate experience at all, like none. But he had some great business experience, and he leveraged his business experience, built the right team, had a great coach, things like that. I'll put my last slide up here. Um, Built a great team, great coach, great partners, and he used that to grow as an investor because what he would communicate was, here's what I've done in the business world. I'm going to bring that same business mentality to multifamily. And he did. He absolutely did. And he's crushing it right now with it. So you don't have to have prior experience. Certainly it's helpful, but also know a lot of people with prior experience who struggle. So, I mean, experience is overrated. It's like driving a car. Just because you've been driving for 20 or 30 years doesn't mean you're going to go beat a 22-year-old race car driver. Like, they probably put in more work, practice doing that thing. And if you haven't put it in like that, then yeah, you're going to struggle. So, I'll leave you with this. The biggest thing you can do is serve people. And if you come from a mindset of serving other people, life will be much easier for you to raise capital. The way I think about this, and it kind of goes back to confidence. Ask yourself, would you put your loved one in a deal? Would you raise money from a loved one? And if you're coming from a place of serving, you would know whether or not you're actually helping that person or not, right? And if you're not comfortable putting people you love in a deal, I know some folks don't really like to work with family and friends, and that's fine. But if you're not comfortable with it, ask yourself why you're not comfortable. Because if you're concerned the deal may not work, then that may mean you have more work to do on learning how to look at deals and analyze deals and building the right team and all the credibility things, right? So just, you have to be introspective here. If you have concerns, you need to go back to that confidence slide because maybe you haven't put in the work, right? And that's just the reality. And that's fine. I mean, I challenge myself with that all the time, still. And I analyze deals, every week I analyze multiple deals, and I still challenge myself to that. So it's okay. But you built that team around you so that it's not just on you. You've got a team of folks who are willing to take a look and help you know, hey, you know what? No, I saw this. It's actually a great deal. I really like it as well. Okay. Here's my contact slide. So I don't have 7 like Alina, but I do have a sample deal package on my website. If you want to learn more about what a deal could look like, whether you want to be a passive investor and learn more of what to look for, or you want to be an active investor and put together your own deals and you want to see like, hey, what should I be putting in here? Check out our sample deal package. You'll also get added to our email list and get some multifamily marketing tips. I already mentioned the podcast, so you can subscribe to the podcast there. And then if you are interested in coaching, I do have a consulting program. You can check that out at thecapitalimpactclub.com. And with that said, I am going to turn it back over to Alina. So I'll let you kind of take it from here.
John, thank you so much. This was an amazing presentation, definitely a lot of great content. And I don't see folks posting questions in the chat. I hope you guys will start unmuting yourself. I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to do that. In the meantime, I want to kind of expand on an earlier point you mentioned about social media. So if someone is utilizing social media, do you think it's best to use one channel, multiple channels, and in your opinion, if it's more than one, which channels should people be utilizing for attracting capital?
Yeah, so great question. This is one of those things where the marketing, I think, is really important from a business standpoint. I mentioned the avatar earlier, right? Understanding who you serve. So to answer that question, I'm going to kind of go back there. Where's this person at? Who is he, right? Because let's say it's a doctor. If your avatar is a doctor, I don't know, pediatrician, whatever it is, right? But if that's your avatar, ask yourself, where are they at? Okay, where do they spend their time? Because the goal is not to be a social media guru. You don't have to build this huge following on social media. That's not the point, right? The point is to educate the people who you feel are the perfect investor for your business. You got to find them, and then you have to communicate your message to them to attract them to your business. So if I'm Nike running, right? If I'm Nike and I want people to know about my running shoes, I'm probably not going to go on LinkedIn, pushing my running shoes, right? It just may not be the best place. Instagram, on the other hand, might be a perfect platform, right? To demonstrate running and our running products and all those things. Maybe YouTube, Facebook for sure. Facebook is basically everything at this point. So Facebook for sure, but Facebook is a pay to play space. If you're going to get into the business side of it, you got to either build communities or you're going to be paying for people to see your posts. So I would say you really have to start the other way. Who are you serving? Where do they live? Where do they like to spend their time? And go from there. In this case, from an investor's, I prefer LinkedIn. I think it's a great platform and a great tool. I would tell people to pick one to start. If you really have a second one, that's fine, but try to keep it to 2 because it's hard to be great against, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And what'll happen is you're going to be average at best across all of them versus like crushing it on one. And if you crush it on one and you crush it with your intended audience, you'll kill it, right? I mean, if you're getting those doctors and you're getting hundreds of doctors through that platform, that's what you want. So focus on that versus trying to make sure you have an Instagram presence or whatever else. It's just not, it's just not the smart way to do it.
Thank you, John. No, that's amazing. Great content and great answer. Guys, anyone else wants to unmute themselves and ask questions?
I have a question. Hey, John, thanks so much for the wonderful presentation. I loved it.
Oh,
the question I have is, how do you go about building a team? I think that's always been my struggle. Work with people, you got to learn to trust them, and they always fail you. And at what point, how do you build that great A team?
It takes time, man. It definitely takes time. I mean, it's not like the first time you hire people or decide to partner people, like those are going to be the people you work with for the next 20 years, right? So I think you're constantly evolving your business as you get clarity on the skill sets you need. And maybe today you need somebody who's great at one thing, but as you develop in your business, you may not need that as much anymore, right? So I think the first thing is figure out where the gaps are in your business and continue to find great people to work with, people that you like, you trust, and want to be involved in your business. And from there, what happens is good people hang with good people, right? If you have a good real estate agent, for instance, that real estate agent probably has a couple of other good lenders or good inspectors or whatever, right? So if you can find kind of that first great A team member, a lot of times they can introduce you to some people, and maybe you keep one or two people here, and you might swap out this person and have like that contractor. So then you can build and grow your team, right? But you have to get a couple of people, and then let their referrals kind of help you build it out from there.
Cool, thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, I want to build up on the question that Sang just asked earlier. So say someone is young and doesn't have any experience in any field, or maybe has an experience or works in the field where there are very few investors that are credited. Uh, while we were talking about attracting investors that are alike to you, whether it's your profession or maybe it's a hobby, maybe you play tennis or golf or something like that. What if you don't have expensive hobby or a job where professionals are accredited or any experience at all? How do you go about setting up your ideal audience and deciding who you're going to attract to your projects?
Yes, this is a great question. There's two sides to that equation, right? It's like I could sit down and say, my ideal investor are, Silicon Valley VCs, right? I could write that down on my piece of paper and say, I want people that have a net worth of $100 million, and cool, that's my avatar. The other side of that is, well, why the hell would they want to work with me, right? What makes me uniquely positioned to win with that audience? And that's the thing I didn't really get into. So there needs to be something that you bring to the table where you can connect with them. There's got to be a connection that you can make. If I'm talking to Silicon Valley VCs and I'm in the Midwest and work the corporate job and work the marketing and we're buying apartments, there's not a lot of natural connections there, right? So I'm gonna have to find a way to either manufacture that or figure out how do I break into that environment. What would be the easiest thing is this: figure out who you are uniquely positioned to serve. There are going to be some people, and this is where the friends and family does come into play, right? Because if you are into the real estate space, you may have, a friend of an uncle or someone like that who does fit that avatar that you can get an introduction to. So you have to start with that network, but leverage that network for the introductions, right? So once you know who that ideal avatar is, if your entire network doesn't have relationships there, you pick the bad avatar, right? If I go with VCs in Silicon Valley and I call my friends and family and tell them, hey, here's who I help specifically, and they say, yeah, I don't know anybody like that, then I probably should step back and say, okay, did I did I pick something that was too tight, or am I just not positioned to do that? But you should pick something where you feel like there's an audience and you can go out and get that. So whether it's engineers, doctors, whatever the case may be, if you can figure out how you connect and engage, I think that's the way to grow. Ingrid, you said that you disagree. I'd love to hear why, please.
I was just in. I'm sorry for being late. I just hopped on, so I'm sure I missed a lot of stuff at the beginning. But I was just in a webinar, not really a conference, an online conference, and so a series of Zoom calls over a couple of days and whatnot, and just being myself in those spaces So what really attracted me to this session was that it was about kind of like selling without selling,
Mm-hmm.
but just being myself in those in micro communities can be very attractive. And it's almost like attracts like birds of a feather in a sense. And so the whole like my parents are older Jamaicans, right? They're not referring me to anybody. I don't know what's up with that, but they are not doing that. So the whole friends and family thing, it really goes away. And the whole like I yeah, so only in the last 3 days I've probably got maybe 60 more people just from the
Mm-hmm.
micro communities. And they're from the thing that I was in for a couple of days, just being myself, just being myself. And so that's why I strongly disagree with friends and family, because my parents are not rich, and my parents there's nothing that they can give me. And I think that micro communities like Valence is kind of like a black LinkedIn. And so they have webinars with people like, oh gosh, CEOs and venture capital managing partners, etc. Just be yourself,
Hey,
and
Ingrid, thank you.
people will be attracted to that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You did miss some of the conversation. I actually had a slide where I distinctly said, do not go with friends and family, but you can use them to help expand your network. So the point I was making there was more about, if you don't have connections to these people now, you can leverage the people you do have connections to start getting some introductions. But you bring up another good point, right? There are so many communities. And one of the things I said there before was you need to figure out where this avatar lives and find ways to connect with them. So there's so many communities, Facebook communities. LinkedIn groups don't really work that well, but they're there. But you can certainly search for professions on LinkedIn, different things like that. Twitter, you can find folks in clusters and figure out who's doing what, right? So I mentioned like the Silicon Valley VC thing as an example. So let's use this. If you are starting 100% from scratch and I wanted to connect with Silicon Valley VCs, first I got to figure out where the hell they are. I would go on LinkedIn, I would go on Twitter, I would do a search, and I would find ways to engage, right? If you can attend an event and put yourself in an environment where they're there naturally, you have a shared interest, boom, that's the best thing. If you can get into a community, a conference, anything where you already have kind of a shared connection, that makes life much easier, right? Because now you're not trying to sell or anything like that. You're there for a reason. You can talk and you can be natural. You have to have something to communicate to them, right? You want to build a relationship. You need to understand what they're looking for and kind of grow a little bit more there. So I just think it's really important to find yourself around the people that you want to attract and work with. Kenneth, you say, can you explain a little bit deeper about channel? Yeah, channel really comes down to the how you communicate your message. So we're doing this right now on Meetup, right? And through a Zoom. We could very easily be doing this on Clubhouse. I could very easily be doing this through a podcast, text message, phone calls, um, lots of different platforms. So the channel is really how you you convey your message.
It would be harder to do it in person, John. Thank God for Zoom that
Yeah.
can bridge people from different parts of the country and sometimes even the world. We sometimes have people from across the border from us, from Canada.
Yep.
Guys, any other questions? Rick, you always have questions.
Hey, Jonathan. Sorry. Hey, sorry. Hi, John. Sorry, I don't have my camera. I'm actually in bed, putting my kids to sleep. A pleasure seeing you again, though. I have a question about the nurturing aspect. I'm just trying to put all my platform together right now, and one of the questions I have or things I'm trying to figure out is how often to reach out to the investors once I get them on my warm list. I have at least once a month set up right now. I'm looking at, I think for me, I think it's probably sent like a newsletter or some sort of an update every other week. What are your thoughts on that, and some other ideas about like how do you keep that list nurtured and keep them warm so they don't forget you, especially in current environment when we're maybe only seeing a deal or two a year?
Yeah, good question. It's a very common question. I think it comes down to what news you have to communicate. Because if every update is, hey, still looking for deals, um, nothing new, but still look for deals, just want to let you know I'm still around. I mean, that's not very helpful. So we'll go back to listening to your audience and serving your audience. If if you have content that you believe can help and you can share that content, then that's helpful, right? But it really comes down to them. If you don't have that, and it is more of an update or market update or something that along those lines, that's helpful. But I think you have to put yourself in their shoes, right? Like, would you want this email? Does it help them? Does it actually add any value to them? Or are you simply
Yeah,
sending an email so you can say, yep, hey, it's every 2 weeks. Here's my email.
yeah, no, I am doing content. So the one I have already is going to be like an overall economic update every month,
Yep.
and I'm looking at doing potentially just
I mean, but do
one
they want
topic
this?
within multi-family.
But
I
why are you
believe
doing
so,
this?
from my
So
understanding,
so
and I'll just
so what I would tell you is listen to your audience, right?
right.
So look, and some of
And
this
yeah,
is like
so
just best practice. If you listen to them and give them what they need, you'll know.
right,
So you can send market updates and all of that. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you really want best practice, ask them, hey, what are you struggling
right,
with right now? What do you want to learn more about? What's holding you back from, you know, doing deals or whatever the case may be, right? And if
right,
you're sending that content, they can't wait to open it. They'll be eager to open your next email, right?
right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
and
just
yeah, no,
yeah.
you're no, I was gonna say you're absolutely right, and that's part of the plan. I think part of my challenge right now is as I, build out this platform, start reaching out to more people. Part of my plan is to have them, fill out the questionnaire in order to talk to me, and after they talk to me, that I'm looking for feedback as well in terms of what they're looking for, and out of the conversation, I'll build more content, and that's my challenge right now going into it because I don't know it as well with what I should reach out to them with, right? So that's what I'm thinking around the lines of that economic update, and another one being just a specific topic within commercial real estate investing and how it might benefit a passive investor. I haven't come up with what that is yet, but that's kind of ballpark of what I'm looking at right now. And of course, I'll adjust as I get more feedback and have some connections.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to ask yourself a question: is this a hobby or a business? And what I mean by that is, if you're looking to build this as a real business, no one launches a business without having a sense of what their customers are looking for, right? And you're gonna have to spend more time understanding who your audience is, what they need, and how you can better serve them, because that's to create that kind of content. And listen, for somebody who's written a bunch of articles and all that kind of stuff, you're sitting there, and if you're not solving people's problems with your words and your content, then it just feels like you're just creating to create. And there are people who pump out a bunch of content, and listen, some of that's fine. I'm not a believer of, you know, putting out content every minute just to stay top of mind. Unless you've built a brand where that's what people love, like a Gary Vee. If you're doing that, but even in that, Gary Vee is giving you quick wins, right, with his content, because people want to hear his opinion just because that's what they love about him, right? So I would say you've got to figure out, like, who's your avatar? Who are you serving? Who are you helping? And when I say avatar, I don't mean that in the fluffy marketing way. What I mean is, who is the investor that without a shadow of a doubt you can go solve their issue and get them to invest with you? right? Because you know that you got the right solution for them. And if you know that, then the next question is, okay, what do they need to invest with me? What's stopping them from investing with me right now? Well, maybe they don't understand how apartment syndication works. Maybe, maybe they try to talk to brokers and they just thought they were snobby and they got turned off by the whole thing. Maybe they got a friend who lost a lot of money in real estate. Maybe they, saw somebody who was part of the Madoff scam, right? I don't know, but you got to figure out those things, and then you got to help solve those issues for that person, so that, again, you've now put yourself in a position to be a solution for the challenges that they face. Because a lot of times they're not going to sit down and say, hey, here's a list of things that I need you to create so I can be comfortable investing. So you're going to have to talk to them and listen to them and understand, okay, here's the challenges that they face. Here's the things that I need to overcome. Here's what I need to talk to them about. And if you can do that, and then you figure out what are broad things, right? That helps. So for instance, I wrote an article called Benefits of Passive Investing. And the reason is, when I was talking to a lot of people in my network, I realized many of them, they just don't understand why they should invest. Maybe they have some money in the stock market, they got a 401k, they're a high income earner, but not necessarily high net worth, because they're not investing in assets. So I had to spend time educating them on, like, hey, here are the benefits of investing in assets, not necessarily talking about the market and, cap rates and that kind of stuff. I had to tell them, like, hey, here's how you lower your taxes. Here's how you diversify from the stock market. Like, here are all these benefits. Here's why so many rich people, invest in real estate. So you kind of have to understand where they're at and then help solve the issues that they're facing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks.
Can
Yep.
I ask one question, follow-up question? Hi,
Sure.
this is Vinky. Sorry I joined late. I missed the wonderful presentation. I have to listen to the recording now. But anyways, I think I heard two schools of thought. I think Hamad was talking about, to me, in a generic sense, to create a questionnaire and a kind of blast email to everybody and figure out each and every response and go from there. And John, I think your strategy was, like, to me, at least the way I perceived it, to have a one-on-one, like more intimate kind of conversation with the person and understand where they're coming from, what their fears are, or what is the whole back is, and go from there. So is it like one approach versus other works better? Because you can have multiple investors and then go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to be real clear. What I'm talking about is what I call an avatar. And let me give you guys a background on how marketing works in big brands. So when I was doing marketing for Mountain Dew, we created a fictional character that we said was our ideal customer. So he has a name. I know what he does for a living, how old he is. He's an 18-year-old kid who loves hip hop. He loves sports. He's big into basketball. So we created a persona around him. So this wasn't about going to find one person and talking to them. It was creating the psychographics and the demographics of the kind of person we wanted to go after and win. Now, that's Mountain Dew. Sprite, which is one of our competitors, probably has similar characteristics that they want to go after with this person, right? Because the product, it's like a sweet lemon lime type flavor. That sweeter profile was more appealing to minorities. Like, there's a whole huge research thing to figure out who wants your product, right? Who wants your product? Who wants your service? So what I'm talking about is that level of understanding, because if you know that, now you can go talk to millions of people at one time. So I'm not talking about literally you got to do it one by one. What I'm saying is, if I write a blog post, I can post it out, or I can record a podcast with the right content. I can send it out to the masses, and the person who it will resonate with will be the people who I know I was writing it for. So I worked in corporate America, and I said my whole story is I was scared that I was going to lose my job and wake up one day and not know how to feed my family. Going from a 6-figure salary to unemployed and just scrambling and thinking about my career and my life and all of that, that started me down this path. When I talk to people, I focus and talk to people who understand and have that same fear. I talk to young parents who are busting their ass at their day job, feeling like they're sacrificing and missing out on those key moments as a parent, and trying to get started with some other business venture, whether it's real estate or something else, and just feel overwhelmed and want a damn solution. Those are the people I connect with, right? So for me, it's not about, I got to go call everyone individually. I want to create the kind of stuff that allows them to know that they're my people. I get you. Let's talk. Like I have a solution for you, right? Just like Nike running. Hey, we got a shoe. I know you ran 5 miles, your feet hurt, you got a corn right here, right? And your pinky toe, they know I got a solution for you. We got the pinky toe installation, right? So it's understanding your customer avatar to that depth that you can really give them the solutions that other folks can't. And that's when you talk about knowing how to win, that sets you apart. I mean, Ingrid's got some comments in here, and I love it. Ingrid, I really wish you could have saw some of the rest of the presentation. But the thing that you're hitting at is that you're able to identify how to stand out and how to attract people. And that's the thing. You've got to understand the psyche, and that's going to be different based on who you're talking to. If you're talking to teachers, they're going to have one mindset. If you're talking to venture capitalists, they're going to have a different mindset. If you're talking to police officers or army professionals, military professionals, they're going to have a different mindset, right? They might be more conservative. They might be more willing to, hey, you need a clear process and show me the regiment. So you got to understand who you're talking to. Who's your person and how do they like their stuff? So if you understand that, then you can send out a blast email, because you're sending it to the people, you're expecting to trigger the people who it really is for, right? And it's not going to work for everybody. Just like I like Nike and I like running, but just if they send me an email right now on running shoes, doesn't mean I'm about to go buy them, right? So it's the same kind of thing where you want to build it where you can attract that audience, but then it's up to you to understand how to continue to engage those people throughout the process.
Thank you, John. Looks like Rick is patiently waiting to ask a question.
Yeah, please.
John, you put on a great seminar and webinar, and I really enjoyed it. But I'll be perfectly honest, I'm like almost diametrically opposed to actually the existence of actually being able to attract capital. I'll give you a case in point. I'm a former Series 7, 63 life health accident, real estate over a third of a century, realtor, and mortgage banker, commercial banker, real estate, mortgage banking. And as a stockbroker or a bond broker, I found it very difficult to raise capital. And I've been doing it since 1965 in the market with equities and, following it since 1968 quite diligently. Series 7 is stockbroker, bond broker, in case you were wondering. And very difficult to raise capital. And as a mortgage banker, I did much better and was probably one of the top, if not the top, in the country of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines and knowing detail and policy and programs and guidelines. And that helped. But I'll tell you, when I went over to turn off the heat and get some water, my word for you is that you're smooth, and you're also a pro. And being in advertising that you had great brands and you accented them or you strengthened them, and you've done great work. Somehow I'm missing a connect in my mind with myself.
I think I know what it is. Do you want to hear it? I think I know what it is. Do you want to
Go
hear
ahead.
it?
Go ahead.
I listen to you talk. Do you know? I'm going to give you some of the stuff you said. You said a whole bunch of technical stuff. You said Series 7. You talked about all your credentials and what most people, and I suffer from this too, so I'll tell you this, right? People who know their stuff and are really good at it, they talk in that industry lingo. And your average person doesn't understand it, goes over their head, and they just shut down. So as you talk to people, if you talk to them like we just did, if you talk to them about the technical side of investing and understanding, those cap rates and terminal, all that kind of stuff, it's over their head. Part of what you got to do is you have to really, again, one of the reasons people aren't into like apartment syndication and real estate is it's too confusing to them. Brokers make it confusing. They talk in their lingo. Everybody in the industry makes this so complex. And if you can break it down at a simple level that a fifth grader can understand, now people trust you. Most of the time they don't trust because they don't understand what the hell is going on. You start talking about 506Bs and 506Cs, Series 7s, and it's so many numbers that is confusing. Reg A, Reg D, SE, like it's so much. So for your average person, they don't want to do the education of all the terminology. You need to know it, but they're not trying to hear it. Well, your job is to take your credibility and the education and break it down to a level where somebody can follow. And this is not just this industry, this is all clients, especially if you're like I have my coaching business, and I had a podcast guest come on and she was amazing because she caught me and she said, I don't know what the hell you just said, but I'm gonna tell you this. If you tell me this can help me get the BMW on again next summer, then I'm in. And I was like, oh, you care about BMWs. You care about vacations. You care about sending your kids to college. You got to talk through that lens to them, right? And if and it's not just about raising money, but it's understanding how you serve people. Dude, I got 2 little kids, okay? My life is all about how do I spend time with them as they're little, to engage, to be the best father I can be, and from a business standpoint, to grow and work with investors to help them grow their portfolio, right? So that's the lens I use when I explore opportunities. If somebody wanted to sell me, please don't do this and use this against me. If somebody wanted to use this, right, they know, hey man, how are your kids? If you start with how are my kids, your chances of converting me went up 50%, right? Because now as a dad, like I got my picture of my boys over there, right? So
Yeah, nice.
as a dad, that's my heart. Just by asking me about my kids, we got a connection now. You care about me as a human being, right? So as long as you don't go and confuse the hell out of me with all your technical stuff and just say, hey, look, so we got this apartment deal. It's going to allow you to double your money in 5 years. There's some risk involved. We feel like we've taken a lot of the risk out because it doesn't need that much upgrades or renovations. So here's the plan. Take a look at it and see what questions you have, right? I don't have to get into IRRs and all of this other stuff if they don't really want to know that. So you have to learn people, and everybody's different. You're a technical guy. Like I picked that up. You're a technical guy. You want somebody who had the credentials talking to you. Like you think you took it like he has that advertising experience. That's what Jonathan did. It's not. That advertising stuff actually got me in trouble because I was technical in advertising. I was saying words like copy, and I had to have one of my clients was like, you keep saying copy. What is copy? I was like, oh, copy is just words. It's the message. The words you write is copy. That's what we call it. It's like, oh, it's an editorial, it's an industry phrase. And I assumed people knew it. And it's like, no. So it's like, you have to train yourself to like, just speak in clear English so people can understand you and you're not tripping people up.
Yeah, I had it in early college days, so I know what you mean by that.
Yeah. Yeah. So does that help though? I think really just if you can break it down and just
in the mortgage banking business, I was able to attract the A-type clients and the higher education clients out of my whole office. So I was able to capture the higher education, usually the larger loans, and the more creditworthy people and the more professionals overall, even though I dealt with pretty much the spectrum.
Yeah, and there's a I said without being a salesperson, but I've had to learn sales techniques because you can't do a good job without understanding the basics of it, right? And there's a technique called mirroring. And in mirroring, part of what it is you have to understand the way someone talks, the kind of language they use and things like that. So if I'm talking to a broker, I wouldn't do what I just said, because with brokers, they're testing you out to see if you know your stuff, right? They want to know, hey, is this a guy who's going to kick the tires, or is this somebody who knows their stuff? So when you're talking to a broker, if they start throwing out the terms, you got to hit them right back. You got to come right back and say, hey, I really need something that has a 15% IRR. And if the bips go up 5 points, if it goes up 5 bips, then the deal's just not going to work for me. Like, you have to know how to establish that credibility and talk in their lingo. And if I'm talking to an investor, I'm not talking like that, unless, to your point, if I'm talking to a high net worth venture capitalist who thinks like that or wants to understand just the numbers, then I have to talk. We have to have a conversation at that level. So you're meeting people based on where they're at, because otherwise they're just going to shut down. They're not going to know where you're at.
I hear you.
Amazing. Thank
I
you.
agree. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Guys, we have about 2 more minutes left. Any final thoughts or questions?
Yes, Selena. Hi, thank you, John. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
It was right in line with a book I've just been reading, and you said some of the same things. So I'm
What
just
book?
Hunter Thompson's Raising.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I'm building my team, but I've got an experienced operator or several that I would be working with. But do I have to have the website, the newsletter, and all those things before I start raising the capital? It seems very cumbersome at this point, and I want to get going. So what's the best way to do this?
Yeah, it's a great question. My coaching clients go through the same thing, and I used to tell them, yes, you need to have it, and I realized it slowed most of them down, like to the point where I'm like, man, I feel like you lost momentum. So here's what I would say: you need there's something called the MVP, right? It's like the minimal viable product. So what I would say is, what's the best way for you to convey your message and build the credibility and do it quickly, right? So if that's through a quick presentation, then I will put together a presentation and go and have your conversations. If it's putting together a website, then put together a website, right? And it depends on your experience, because you may, and again, everybody's different. If you have the relationships where you could pick up a phone call and raise $1 million through 3 phone calls, don't sit around building on a website. Get on the phone and call people, right? If you don't, and you feel like, you're going to need to, demonstrate a bit more polished professionalism and really work a little bit harder to get these people on board, then I would say spend some time doing that. Here's the thing, though, that's really cool. You can do both at the same time. And you can engage your network while you're building these things out. And it's actually fun. And it's something I really recommend, because what you can do, and I think Taylor and I were talking about this last year, but you can engage them as part of the process. So for instance, you're building on a website. Hey guys, building on a new website for this real estate business I'm launching. Looking at 2 different logos. Would love to get your take. Well, guess what? Now they're engaging with you. Oh, I like this one. Oh, I like this one. Some people are going to say, hey, tell me more about this real estate business you're building out. Cool, right? And you can do that each step of the way to engage with people and grow. So I would say get started, because I think the worst thing you can do is not have momentum. Right. But you also want to be building towards a sense of professionalism, so that you have it polished and in a way that is sustainable and credible as you move forward.
Okay. Thank you. Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John, this was amazing. Again, thank you so much. Great content, a lot of good questions. Folks, if you want to reach out to John, he's put out his contact before. Feel free to connect with him. As he said, he is on LinkedIn a lot, so feel free to connect with him there or offline. And as always, if I can be of help, feel free to reach out. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Alina.
Thank you, Alina. Appreciate it. Thank you again, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
John.
Good night.